For 8 months, the residents of the village of Maksymivka lived under Russian occupation. During this time, not a single surviving house remained here. Everywhere burnt military equipment. In front of the houses, trenches. And these are not the only traces of the invaders.
Look what they left behind, what kind of art. How is that possible? Now let's go ahead and see what they have done inside the house. Here, look, they made a bomb shelter.
In the house of Natalia, the Russians set up a headquarters. While retreat, they mined the entire territory. Sappers, Natalia says, even found grenades in the well.
On November 19th we arrived here. We were horrified, of course, so we stayed here because wherever it is good, but at home it is better. There is no roof, the ceilings fell, the windows are also broken, one I think survived, and so nothing.
Now Natalia and her husband live in the summer kitchen. They don't want to rent other house. The woman recalls that Russian shells caught up with them even in Mykolaiv.
There were 4 explosions, from the first to the last floor completely destroyed, the plates fell, I don't know how we survived.
Throughout the occupation, 24 people remained in the village without a break. Among them are Grigory and his father. The man had nowhere to go. Now there is nowhere to live. The house was destroyed by shelling.
Here I was on the couch, my grandfather was in that room, I was wounded in the leg, this wardrobe fell, there were fragments even on the clothes, everything flew. There's a shard lying around somewhere too, piece of iron.
8 months had to spend the night in the basement, without electricity, water and food. Grigory recalls the days of the occupation the most terrible in his life.
The convoys were moving, we thought it would pass and that's it, it won't happen. As my grandfather says, they were not here during the Second World War. The Germans entered and were in the fields, this was not the case in the village. We waited for them to come and set us free. We waited all the time, we had no connection, no phones, nothing. There was no radio to find out what the news was, what was happening where, so we sat.
Animals and chickens on the farm miraculously survived. Shrapnel and blanks from shells are still found in the garden.
Pieces of iron were flowing. Here they are. This is where it all fell. One shed caught fire. Then the hay was on fire and burned down. That's all brought here. Here you see what kind of iron. This is where the arrival was. Here it fell.
In the summer, the Russians brought equipment to the village. Tanks and infantry fighting vehicles were placed simply between the houses. From here they fired at Mykolaiv. Dugouts were also dug here in case of a response from the armed forces of Ukraine. Residents who remained in Maksymivka recall the arrests and murders of peaceful fellow villagers.
Some was killed by Russians, we don't know where. The house was burned down and we don't even know where that man went. And one disappeared somewhere. It was arrival at our house too, but we've already repaired it. The roof is leaking, of course, full of holes. We closed it, but buckets, bowls are still needed. Did you live in basements all the time? No, not all the time. We just hid in basements. When we heard that it was whistling somewhere, we ran to the basement. The children lived in the basement for 3 months, did not go out, slept in the basement, 9 and 11 years old. In the basement they painted there, read, lived.
Both people and animals suffered from the Russian occupiers. In the fields there are remains of cows that were blown up by the enemy ammunition. Homeless dogs walk the streets. The remaining residents of the village take care of them.
Come, my boy, he was all burned out and his eye was gouged out. He came under fire and this is our button. The owner moved out and left her. They left this one too, that's not all.
Piles of boxes from Russian shells damaged agricultural machinery nearby. Volodymyr hopes to repair it. The man has been living in Kherson for many years. He spent the entire occupation here. In his native Maksymivka, he cultivated the land. 3 tractors, a combine harvester, a car, everything is broken.
And who will count my losses? They did it, you see, Russia has done this. There are consequences, you see, everything is beaten. They were just being shot at. It's not like because of shelling, but simply destroyed, that's all. What do you think? Will you continue your activities? Certainly, life goes on, we will restore and what to do. And how are the fields? Aren't you afraid? Everything is mined. We'll do something, we will walk and look, because they do not promise to clear mine yet.
It is still dangerous to go into the fields. According to approximate estimates, more than 200,000 hectares of land in the Mykolaiv region have been mined.
Farmers now want to return, because the sowing campaign of 2023 is starting, but agricultural land has not yet been completed cleared, and in our community it is 30,000 hectares of land. Of this, only 4,000, which according to experts are normal. You can work on them. Farmers take to the fields at their own risk.
Russian troops withdrew from Maksymivka in November 2022 after a counteroffensive by the Ukrainian army. Out of 100 people, no more than 15 now live here. They are recovering from the occupation and learning to live again without fear. Reported by Roman Smoler, Daria Letochenko, UATV News.